It was the year 1798, deep in the rugged farmlands of western Kentucky, a place barely touched by civilization. People who moved there were searching for peace, land, and a new beginning. But for the Crowder family, peace was the last thing they brought with them. The father, Isaac Crowder, was a man who never smiled. He spoke little and worked alone, building fences and barns long after dark. His wife, Margaret, was quiet, she always with her head bowed, her hands trembling as if she'd seen something she could never forget. And their two sons, Elias and Jonah, rarely spoke to anyone in the nearby town of Rock Creek. They stayed on their farm, a lonely patch of land surrounded by thick woods and mist. The locals called it Crowder Hollow, and before long, they stopped going near it at all. It began with missing travelers, merchants, drifters, even preachers, and all vanished somewhere between Rock Creek and Crowder Hollow. The sheriff sent men to search the woods, but they always came back pale, shaking, and silent. Then came the smell. Locals claimed that on hot nights a strange, metallic scent drifted through the air, like blood cooked in fire. Dogs howled through the night, and crows gathered on the fence posts, watching the farmhouse as if waiting for something to move. Rumors spread fast in small towns. Some said Isaac was a devil worshiper. Others said he made a deal with something dark, something that lived beneath the soil. But no one dared to find out, until July 13, 1798, when a 14-year-old boy named Samuel Boone wandered too close to the Crowder property and never returned. Samuel's disappearance broke the silence. A group of 5 townsmen, armed with muskets and torches, rode out to confront Isaac Crowder. They reached the farmhouse just before midnight. The doors were open, the candles still burning, and on the wooden floor were footprints, but not like human ones. Each print looked like a bare human foot, but twisted, with claw-like marks dragging behind them, as if something had crawled out of the earth and walked on 2 legs only halfway. The men fled before sunrise. Only one, a man named Walter Briggs, returned to town. Shaking, his voice gone hoarse, all he said was, "They're not people in that house anymore." The Crowders were never seen again after that night. When a new family arrived months later, they found the house empty, but the cellar door was sealed shut from the outside. And every night, when the wind blew through the hollow, a faint voice could be heard whispering from beneath the ground, calling names that no one alive still remembered. After that night, silence fell over Kentucky, but the Miller farm was far from silent. Locals said the land had started breathing again, heavy, slow, like something alive beneath the soil, and soon it demanded another sacrifice. The new owners, the Harris family, moved into the farmhouse 3 months later. A simple couple with 2 children, trying to rebuild what others had abandoned. But from the first night, strange things began to happen. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the cows started screaming, a sound so human that even the sheriff refused to come near. Doors slammed shut, windows cracked from the inside, and the little boy, Daniel, began talking to someone in the barn. He said, "They're still working under the ground." One morning, Mrs. Harris found muddy footprints leading from the fields to the kitchen. But they weren't Daniel's. They were bare, large, and fresh, even though it had rained all night. When she followed them, they stopped at the old cellar door, the same one that Sheriff Boone had ordered sealed 70 years ago. Inside, she found bones and not buried, just stacked neatly, like someone had been counting. Each pile had a name carved on a small piece of wood, and one of them read, Boone. That same week, Mr. Harris disappeared. No struggle, no blood, just a chair overturned near the kitchen table and a single, muddy handprint on the wall. Daniel told his mother that the pale man took him to finish the harvest. She asked where the pale man was. The boy pointed to the cornfield and whispered, "He lives where the ground hums." 2 nights later, the townsfolk saw fire again, not from the house this time, but from beneath it, a red light pulsing through the soil like the earth itself was bleeding. When the sheriff returned with his men, the farmhouse was empty. The Harris family gone. Only the wind howled through the fields, carrying a faint sound and laughter, deep and wet, echoing underground. They searched the entire property, and just before dawn, one of the deputies found a door hidden under a pile of hay. When they opened it, the same cold air hit them again, and carved into the stone beneath was a new message. The harvest never end. Since then, no one ever lived there again. But on stormy nights when thunder rolls across Kentucky, locals say you can still see lanterns moving in the fields. And if you listen closely, you'll hear the Miller family singing from beneath the dirt. Because for them, the harvest has only begun. 200 years later, the Miller farm was forgotten, its land now a quiet patch of forest, hidden behind rusted fences and broken warning signs. Locals said it was cursed, but for a group of young filmmakers from Chicago, it was the perfect place to shoot a horror documentary. They called themselves the Urban Seekers. 5 friends, cameras, drones, and confidence, but no clue what was waiting for them underground. The group arrived just before sunset. The air was colder than usual, and the forest had no sound, no birds, no wind, nothing. Even the leaves looked burned. As they set up camp near the old foundation stones, the camera started glitching to static white flashes. On playback, there were figures in the background that weren't there before. Tall, thin, pale shapes, just standing near the trees. At 3:00 a.m., the microphones picked up a deep rumble, like something shifting beneath the ground. Then came the smell, iron and rot. One of the crew members, Alex, went to check the sound recorder near the old well. He didn't come back. When they replayed the audio, there was a whisper right before the static. The harvest continues. And then, silence. Their cameras were smashed, tents torn apart. Something had clawed through the soil, as if the earth itself had hands. They ran to the main road screaming for help. A truck driver found them hours later, covered in mud and blood, eyes wide open, unable to speak. All they could do was point back toward the forest and mumble the same words again and again. They're still under there, still counting bones. Police found their gear scattered across a half-mile radius, but what they found inside the camera was worse. A single frame showing a family of 5 standing in the fog holding lanterns. Behind them, rows of crosses made from bones. And on the last frame, the pale man staring directly into the lens. By the fall of 1799, travelers began to vanish near the Donnelly farm. Their horses returned riderless, their wagons empty. Locals whispered that the soil around the farm grew darker each day, as if it had drunk too much blood. Late one night, neighbors claimed to hear screams from the barn. But when the sheriff arrived, the youngest son, Samuel, was calmly feeding pigs. Pigs that looked unnaturally fat. Inside the trough, the sheriff found something that looked like a human hand half-eaten. Months later, a wandering preacher stayed at the farm for the night. He never came back, but his journal did. Found miles away in the woods, its pages described a family who believed their bloodline was chosen by the devil to cleanse the weak. They called their home the Farm of Purity. In 1802, a group of settlers investigated the abandoned Donnelly farm. Under the barn, they found a hidden cellar, lined with bones, each carved with strange markings. At the center lay a massive wooden table, and carved above it, "Feed the soil." Today, the land where the farm once stood is said to be cursed. Locals swear they still hear screams at night, and crops die in perfect circles. But just last year, construction workers found a new cellar, and inside, a fresh carving. It read, "The Donnelly blood still feeds." A century later, the Donnelly land was sold for redevelopment. No one mentioned its past, but when the workers broke ground, the machines began to fail. Metal rusted overnight, and animals refused to go near. Then one morning, a bulldozer uncovered a blackened root, thick as a man's arm, pulsing like it was alive. Samples of the soil were sent to a lab. The report came back. Human hemoglobin detected. But when the investigators returned to the site, the root was gone. That night, every camera feed went static, and one worker vanished, leaving behind only his helmet, filled with blood. Locals now say when the wind blows through that valley, you can hear a whisper, not screaming. Just one repeating line again and again. "Feed the soil." The same words carved on that cellar table 200 years ago. In 2024, a paranormal team entered the site with thermal cameras. Their final footage, never released publicly, showed a figure crawling from the ground covered in soil, its face identical to old portraits of the Donnelly matriarch. The camera dropped as a voice whispered, "The family is hungry again?" Today that land is fenced off. Government signs say environmental hazard, but at night from the road you can see the soil still moving, not from the wind, from breathing. And if you stop your car long enough, you'll hear it whisper your name. The Donnelly farm never died. It just went deeper underground.